You've been extremely active in advocating lower pricing on pharmaceutical drugs. Yes. Could you explain to us where the nation is in this process and what you've been doing to advocate this?
Do you have several hours for this? Okay. Now, this is an issue I've been working very hard on. In fact, I've probably been the leader in Congress on the issue. And this touches on the question that you just asked me a moment ago. In the state of Vermont and throughout this country, you have millions of senior citizens and others who cannot afford the high prices of prescription drugs. Today in the United States, our people are paying significantly higher prices than our folks in Canada, Mexico, Europe, any place else in the world. As you may or may not know, I took a trip to Canada last year with a number of Vermonters, and what we found is that certain drugs were selling in Canada, the exact same product was selling for 1/10 the price that they were selling in the United States. Tamoxifen, which is a widely prescribed drug for breast cancer, was selling 10% of the cost there as opposed to the United States. What I have been doing now is I introduced legislation which, as we speak, is going to be brought before a conference committee, variations of my legislation, which would lower the cost of prescription drugs in this country by 30 to 50%, very simply by saying that pharmacists and prescription drug distributors should be able to purchase FDA safety-approved prescription drugs any place in the world that they can get that product. So in other words, our pharmacists in the state of Vermont should be able to purchase their drugs in Canada so long as they're FDA safety approved. The result will be a very substantial reduction in prices in the state of Vermont. Number two, even with that, we have to make sure that prescription drugs are a benefit under Medicare. Many elderly people, even with lower drug prices, are going to need help with Medicare. So those are some of the areas that we have been working. But as what you should understand is we have been opposed by the pharmaceutical industry, which is the most profitable industry in America, which last year made $27 billion in profits, which has contributed $9 million to both political parties, which has 300 paid lobbyists in Washington, D.C., which is currently running radio, television, and newspaper ads against the legislation that I've offered. They are very powerful special interests whose primary concern is to make sure their profits remain high, and in my view, they could care less whether seniors in the state of Vermont suffer or die because they can't afford their prescription drugs. But getting back to the point that I made earlier, there are some people who say, well, you know, government should not be involved in this area. People get sick and they die because they can't afford prescription drugs. Well, it's a tough life. I don't agree with that. I think our government should play an active role in protecting the sick in this country, all healthcare consumers, and make sure that we get prescription drugs at a price that people can afford.
I have a question about this. Is it an all-inclusive plan, or is it for just senior citizens?
The lowering of prices is for everybody. And basically what it says is if you wanted to buy a computer, okay, you go to a store. Well, that computer is likely, it could be manufactured any place in the world. And the people and you go in and you buy that. That is true for almost every product that we purchase, for better or for worse in the global economy. It is not true for prescription drugs. The only people who can sell prescription drugs in this country to your pharmacist is the pharmaceutical industry. And what they do is have a monopoly, and as a result, they're charging very, very high prices. So this legislation, which would allow prescription drug distributors and pharmacists to purchase their products in Canada, Europe, anywhere they can get a good price, would affect every consumer, not just senior citizens. But obviously, the prescription drug benefit under Medicare would benefit senior citizens exclusively.
So you've clearly stated that you think the federal government should really play an active role in regulating business and...
Well, not a question of regulating business. In this case, let's turn it around, okay?
Sure.
We are the only country in the world where the pharmaceutical industry can sell their products at any price that they want. And to add insult to injury, many of the anti-cancer drugs, many of the drugs dealing with AIDS and other products were developed with taxpayer dollars. So we develop the drug, we give it over to the drug companies, they charge us any price they want. So let me turn your question around. Do I think that drug companies should be able to sell their products at any price they want, even if it means that people are going to get sick and die? The answer is no. The government should play a very active role. Furthermore, in my view, the government should make sure that every man, woman, and child in this country has health care as a right of citizenship.
In 1999, it looks like then Congressman Sanders introduced the Healthcare Research and Development and Taxpayer Protection Act, which required persons who undertook federally funded research and development of drugs to enter into a reasonable pricing agreement with the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Sadly, this bill was killed in committee.